If there's one concept that has benefited me more than any other concept in my life, has made my life better, much more fluid and easier to manage, it's a concept of non-resistance. And once you learn this and start implementing it into your own life, I have no doubt that your life is going to be nothing short of magical. In this video you're about to watch, I'm going to talk about the concept of resistance, why it is unproductive, how to learn to notice it and release it, and finally, how to keep it from showing up in your life. Now, you've probably heard of the idea of self-actualization, and I think the first step on the journey of self-actualization is understanding the concept of resistance. So, what exactly is resistance? If you've ever wanted something but have actively worked against getting it, then you've experienced resistance. If you've ever had the idea that you might be sabotaging your own success, it's because you're experiencing resistance. Resistance is a force we put up when we try to control things that we cannot control. And the problem is that most everything that is external to us is outside of our control. We aren't able to control most of what's outside of us, but we naturally want to control things. And when you try to change the way things are, you're putting up resistance. When things aren't going your way and you try to change them but you can't, you're experiencing resistance. When you try to change your partner and they just won't change, then you're putting up resistance. When you try to force things to conform with your personal concept of the world, then you're putting up resistance. So what happens is that when you put up resistance towards something and you don't get the results that you want, you're inevitably going to feel some sort of emotion. And it's almost always going to be a negative emotion. I mean, rarely does anyone feel good about not getting what they want. But ironically and counterintuitively, if you could learn to feel good about not getting what you want, you actually might get a little bit farther in life. But as you start to feel these negative emotions, and if you don't allow yourself to feel these negative emotions, they're going to start taking over your physiology, and your body is going to change its state of energy. For example, you might feel flushed and heated up if you start to get angry. Your shoulders might droop forward if you feel a little bit guilty or shame or sad. You might tense up when you feel frustrated. And what happens is that you start internalizing and you start embodying this resistance. And as you internalize and embody this resistance, you start to take on patterns. You start to create and take on patterns that embed itself in your everyday thinking. Because the mind and body have a interlocked dynamic relationship with each other. What you think, you feel, and what you feel, you think. So as you create resistance in one part of your life, it's more likely that that same kind of resistance is going to transfer over into other parts of your life. And you're more likely to resist doing other things as well. Now just think of all the people that you know who have become bitter towards life. It most likely started out with them not getting something that they wanted, and they put up some sort of resistance about not getting it. They tried to control it and they just couldn't control it. And this whole thing just started to spiral out of control. So let's take a quick example here. You've probably been stuck in traffic at some point in your life. If you haven't, congratulations. But let's say you're on your way to work and you have to go get in your car and drive. And the moment you get on the freeway, you're stopped. It's stop and go traffic. Now, what you could do is you could get mad. You could get angry. And that's what a lot of people do. But is you getting mad and angry about being stuck in traffic going to alleviate the traffic congestion? Probably not. But if you react with anger or frustration, you're just going to let that emotion build up inside you. And the more you let it build up inside you, the more you're going to think about it. The more you think about it, the more tense you're going to get, the more frustrated you're going to get. And it's going to have this cascade of hormone release that's going to linger in your body for hours. And so once you finally make it to work, you're going to be in a bad mood. And all these hormones are still circulating through your system. The adrenaline, the cortisol, and they're just going to help stress you out. They're going to put you in a bad, stressed out mood before you even get to work and have to face the stresses of the day. All because you couldn't accept the fact that you had to sit in traffic. Or you could look at it another way. You say, okay, well, I'm stuck in traffic. How can I make this situation a little bit better for myself? I can listen to the radio. I can listen to audiobooks. I can sit there and meditate while I'm on my way to work and just think about things. Let my brain process things that I need to think about. Sure, you're going to be late, but there's nothing you can do about it. Of course, you're going to want to call and let them know that you're stuck in traffic so you don't get into trouble. But there are things you can do. The way you react towards sitting in traffic or any other situation that's outside of your control is not going to change the situation. So the best course of action here is to just accept that you're in this situation. But the thing is, it's not just traffic or any other external event that we can't control. It has just as much to do with any situation or event or activity that could potentially change our own perception of our identity. We don't want to change who we think we are. And that's where the ego comes in. It's why people are more afraid of losing what they have than gaining something that they don't. It's because a lot of times people identify with the material objects, the things they have, their material possessions. It's because they put a little bit of their identity in everything that they own. So in essence, resistance is just the ego trying to reinforce and protect its identity. It really just wants to maintain the status quo. It's trying to conserve the idea that it has the ability to control anything that might threaten the ego's identity. Because it doesn't want to change, even if it's in your best interest. It just wants to stay comfortable. It wants to stay safe and secure. And doing anything that could challenge that safety is a threat to the ego. Therefore, the ego puts up resistance to it. So it unconsciously sets up obstacles in our way so that we can't achieve what we want to achieve, because achieving that would be a threat. The ego oftentimes causes you to live in a state of fear. And living in a state of fear is not good. But unfortunately, most of us who live in a constant state of fear actually get some sort of comfort out of it. Doesn't make sense, but it's just the way it is. So now leave me a comment below. When you feel the resistance, what are the internal sensations and the internal feelings that you get when you start to experience resistance? So why is resistance unhelpful and counterproductive? First thing is that resistance will keep you from growing. And for a lot of people, that's okay. A lot of people are perfectly content with living a static life, not looking to move forward with anything, not looking to improve or grow. You see that a lot with the people who don't like to continue learning new things when they get out of high school. They think they've learned everything they need to learn in order to get through life. They don't enjoy learning new things. And like I said, there's nothing really wrong with that. This isn't a moral judgment against anybody, but I do want to make clear that if you want to grow in life, you're going to have to overcome the resistance that you put up towards getting where you want to go in life. If you want new experiences, if you want more fulfillment in life, then resistance is your enemy. Number 2, holding on to outdated ideas and beliefs will keep you from growing. Not being open to new ideas and new experiences just because they don't conform or align to what you already believe is resistance. And the act of letting go of resistance is called acceptance. And just because you accept something the way it is doesn't necessarily mean you have to like it. It doesn't mean you're giving in. It doesn't even necessarily mean that you have to change. All that is just your ego talking. It's telling you the lies that it wants you to believe so that you put up the resistance in order to keep it from changing. Number 3, resistance mechanisms are deeply ingrained in us. They're so deeply ingrained that we don't even really notice them. And these mechanisms, these resistance mechanisms, come from our personal beliefs, our cultural beliefs, our religious beliefs, our beliefs of what should be, or the way things should be that we would rather them be, rather than what actually is. And when our beliefs are in direct conflict with reality, we have a tendency to rationalize them. We have a tendency to make excuses about why things are the way they are. We would rather make up scenarios that fit our beliefs rather than question what we believe. We don't want to question our assumptions, mainly because we don't even know our assumptions. We don't understand our hidden assumptions about the way the world works. And if we've been making all these assumptions that inform our beliefs, and since we're not aware of what these assumptions are, it's these assumptions that create the resistance in the first place. Therefore, we're not even aware that we put up this resistance. Number 4, putting up resistance is a waste of energy. Now, let me give you a metaphor. If you walk up to a house, a brick house, and you just start pushing it with the intention of moving it, you put forth all your force and all your might, and that house does not budge an inch. Now, did you get anywhere? No, you didn't. But you're now exhausted because you put a lot of energy into moving something that was impossible for you to move. This is energy that you could have used or saved for a much more useful purpose. So resistance really is just a waste of energy. And that's really the message that I'm trying to get through. Resistance is a waste of energy. So if Resistance is based on our beliefs, which are based on a lot of hidden assumptions that we make in the world. How are we to even notice when we put up resistance? Well, it's a pretty straightforward process. Now, it's not always easy because it does take a lot of practice. The first step is to simply notice when things aren't going your way or not going the way that you would like them to go. Then you ask yourself the question, can I affect the outcome of this situation? Do I have the power to affect the outcome of this situation? Now, if you have the power and you have the motivation to do something about it, then go ahead and do something about it. But if you don't, then simply notice how a lack of control makes you feel. Because the resistance will be noticed in the action that you take or the behavior that you exhibit. If your inability to control a situation creates a negative sensation or negative emotion or negative act, then that's resistance. So to put it another way, how do you react when things don't go your way? Are you feeling negative emotions? If so, are those negative emotions trying to manifest themselves physically? Like acting with negative behavior, like a toddler throwing a temper tantrum? Or alternatively, do you internalize those emotions and start thinking negative thoughts and going down that negative thought spiral? If anything causes a negative emotion or a negative thought or a negative behavior, and it's because of something that's outside of your control, you're putting up resistance. All you need to do is accept the situation for the way it is. So once you learn to notice resistance, then you can start to release resistance. So how do you release resistance? Well, it all comes down to acceptance. And acceptance really starts with awareness. If you're not aware how you're holding on to something, you're not going to be able to release it. And knowing the precise areas in your life where you put up resistance will help you find it when it happens. It's like some people can be highly effective in their careers, where everything just kind of flows like water. They don't really put up resistance towards anything, and they make astounding progress. But that very same person may struggle in their personal relationships because perhaps they expect people to be a certain way, and they want to change people and control people, but people won't change and they won't be controlled because we all have our nature, but they still expect them to change. So they put up resistance in their personal relationships. So if something in your life isn't going as well as you'd like, then examine that aspect and see if there's a pattern there. And if there is, it's likely that you're putting up resistance somewhere. So here's an action step for you. Go back and examine your own personal history. And remember all the times that you didn't get what you wanted and you associated those situations with negative emotions. Look to see if there are patterns there. What beliefs did you tell yourself about the situation back then? What are the beliefs that you tell yourself about the situation now? And what is the underlying hard truth about the situation that you've been avoiding? Now imagine yourself making a different decision about the situation. Or imagine yourself wanting something different to where you're sort of indifferent about the outcome. Now what kind of emotion does that bring up? Like if your favorite sports team didn't win the national championship, a lot of people get emotional about this. But you, unless you're an athlete on the team, then you're not going to be able to control the outcome of your favorite sports team. But you know how people can get really emotional when their favorite team doesn't win. Now, imagine if you didn't have a favorite sports team. You were just there casually watching whatever the game was, and you didn't care who won or who lost. How would it make you feel if you didn't care about the team? And how would it make you feel if you didn't care about sports at all? Not any sport. You wouldn't care, right? So here's the thing about the negative emotions surrounding the situation. The key to releasing resistance is to allow yourself to feel and acknowledge that emotion. Because when you allow yourself to feel the emotion and when you learn to accept that you are actually feeling the emotion, instead of just letting them spiral out of control or embedding them a little bit more deeply into your physiology, then the resistance that you feel will start to slip away. And only when you allow yourself to experience and process the emotion, instead of internalizing it or even externalizing it, then you're not going to embody it and you won't let it turn into some self-perpetuating spiral loop out of control into a negative behavior. But you have to allow yourself to process it. You have to allow yourself to experience it. And once you've allowed yourself to experience it and process it, simply just acknowledge it and let it go. Now you know how to release it, but how do you keep resistance from showing up? Now it's going to take some practice to go from where resistance is a central thing in your life to where it doesn't even take part in your life. but the more you do it, the easier it's going to get. It begins with learning to notice how you feel when resistance shows up. It begins with learning to notice your response to it. But most importantly, the more you practice releasing resistance, the better you're going to get at it. And you'll start to look at any resistance as an opportunity to practice. Every consecutive time it shows up, you don't have to put nearly as much effort into resisting resistance, so to speak, that every time you encounter the resistance, it's not going to be nearly as strong as it was the previous time. Like lifting weights literally makes it easier to overcome the resistance of lifting weights. Weightlifting is practicing overcoming resistance. You're going to get stronger. Now the weight doesn't actually get lighter, you're just getting stronger to where getting through that resistance takes less effort on your part. And then you learn acceptance and you learn to accept everything without judgment. And when you stop judging, you stop resisting. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that. If this video has been helpful for you, help me out by clicking that like button. Don't resist it, just click it. And if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing because that would be awesome and much appreciated. And hit that bell icon to be notified anytime I release a new video so you won't miss out. All right, thanks for watching.